I'd like to call to order the Plan and Zone Commission meeting of June 19th, 2018. I'd like to welcome everybody who's in attendance. At the same time, I feel it's important to mention that I need to have everybody turn off your cell phones. If you get a voicemail, it could bleed into our audio recording, and I doubt that you probably want that. That being said, seeing a lot of new faces in the crowd, if anybody would like to speak during the presentation, please do so in an honorable way. Please direct all your comments and questions to the commission, not to the staff, not to the petitioners, not to each other. Have it all be directed up here. Generally, I limit the time of discussion for about 5 minutes per person. We appreciate if we don't have a lot of repeat comments. Obviously, I would like to hear as many people that want to get up, but with 100 people in the crowd, that could be a long night. So try to be to the point. With that being said, we will start with our public hearing. And roll call, please.
Connell.
Present.
Hepner.
Here.
Ingram.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Kelling. Lammers.
Present.
Manus and Met are excused. Quinn.
Here.
Reinhartz.
Here.
Tallman present. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. The first two cases in public hearing are actually related, so I will read both of them since we will discuss them at the same time. First one is case number REZ 18-08, request of William Torcha on behalf of WCT Investments, Davenport Series, for rezoning of 6.5 acres MOL located along the south side of East 53rd Street and east of Lorton Avenue from R1 Low Density Dwelling District to a PDD, Planned Development District, to facilitate commercial development. Second item being case number ROW 18-01, request of William Torcha on behalf of WCT Investments Davenport Series for the vacation or abandonment of 0.34 acre, 14,812 square feet MOL of right-of-way known as Fairhaven Road, extending approximately 285 feet south from East 53rd Street to facilitate the commercial development. Ryan?
Good evening, Ryan Rusnak with Community Planning Economic Development Department. The applicant is requesting to rezone property to PDD, Planned Development District, as the chair indicated, to facilitate commercial development, and also incorporate a part of Fairhaven Road into the development. 9 properties would be acquired for the redevelopment. The applicant has those properties under contract currently. Here is the zoning map showing the location of the 9 properties as well as the right-of-way. Properties currently zoned R1, Low Density Dwelling District. Here's an expanded view of the zoning map, just to give you an idea of what the area looks like. And here is the 2035 future land use map. As you can see, the property is designated as residential general. It's staff's opinion if commercial development is found to be appropriate in this location, the future land use map should change as well. Please recall that the PDD zoning requires a land use plan to be submitted, and subsequently a final development plan would come before this commission and city council to ensure that it is consistent with the approved land use plan. Property is also subject to the Highway Corridor Overlay District, which elevates the design requirements. Here is the design proposal. The plan depicts 2 drive-through restaurants, a dine-in only restaurant, and a retail building. Petitioner has indicated that the 8,964 square foot development, which is here, and I'll let them go into that when they make their presentation, would be the initial commercial development for the property. The plan as depicted shows 341 parking spaces. Since this is the anticipated tenant, they do indicate that there may be some adjustments to some of the buildings because the actual tenants would drive those developments, but the overall development style would remain. 25-foot landscape buffer is shown along the south property line and the west property line, as well as along East 53rd. As I mentioned, Fairhaven Road, which is in this location here, would be incorporated into the development. If vacated, we do have utilities in there, so the utility easement would need to be retained for that. The primary entrance for the property would be at this location here. This is at the signalized intersection that's going in with the new Costco development. They would construct a decel lane in this location. This would be a secondary entrance. I'll talk about that in a second. Due to the project phasing, as I mentioned, this would be the initial entrance into the commercial development. These are the design plans of the Costco and the signalized intersection. So they would line up with this over here and have dual lefts. This is a median that extends down, and that'll make sense in a second. Fairhaven Road is right here, and so along with Costco's right in, right out, this median gets extended past this Fairhaven Road, and Fairhaven Road essentially becomes a right in, right out at that point in time. We would note that the city has requested a traffic study from the applicant. That hasn't been completed yet, but what we want to ensure is that the traffic caused by the proposed development, and we want to see that it isn't going to cause a deficiency to East 53rd, as well as we'd like to see how the trip distributes onto the roadway network. This is a contour map, and the only reason I wanted to show this, and it's hard to see some of the utilities, but East 53rd is a lower point here, and the grade rises up to about Fairhaven Road. The properties along here undulate, but they generally follow the grade of East 53rd, and then the grade drops as you go south along these areas here. And the reason I mention that, and the developer has more renderings for this, the reason I put this and talk about the contour map is because currently properties drain this way. In order to make the property direct that stormwater away from properties to the south, there has to be some filling and moving of dirt, and that creates this grade change. So you do have kind of a step up in elevation as you're viewing from this area as well as from this area. I would point out that there is no access proposed on Lorton. The developer indicated that the drainage for the area would contain two subsurface drainage systems, basically the stormwater retention areas under the parking lots. One system would outfall into the Fairhaven roadway drainage ditch, and the secondary one that would be with this development here would outfall into the Lorton Avenue drainage ditch. This area of the city was actually county land when it was developed, and so you don't have the full roadway section that you would expect to see in a city. You've got a seal coat road, you've got open drainage swales, and you don't have sidewalks along this area. So stormwater that does outfall would be piped. I'm sorry, it would not be piped. It would be in these open swales, or essentially drainage ditches. And this kind of shows the utility map. The stormwater in this location comes down to here, and there's an inlet, and then it crosses here into a right-of-way. The stormwater that comes down here enters this stormway here, and then they both enter into Hamlin's Creek. Public input, there was a neighborhood meeting on June 14th, last Thursday. Approximately 55 people attended. Some of the concerns that were stated: increased traffic on East 53rd caused by the proposed development, as well as Costco that's going to be forthcoming, and the stacking of cars caused by the Chick-fil-A restaurant. Existing condition of stormwater drainage along Lorton Avenue, existing roadway conditions on Lorton Avenue and Fairhaven Road. The signal at the intersection of Lorton is not properly timed. The potential for increased traffic on Lorton Avenue due to proposed development, and potentially, why this location. And I guess for that, I would just say that, we didn't we didn't really ask the developer to pick this location. You know, these, for the benefit of the public, these requests come in. They negotiate with private landowners, and it's their choice to request this rezoning. We did send out letters to property owners within 200 feet of the proposed development, notifying them of this. Public hearing signs were posted at the intersection of East 53rd and Lorton Avenue, notifying them of public hearing. So this is a public hearing, so we don't have a recommendation at this time. We would anticipate a public hearing, a recommendation at the July 2nd Plan and Zoning Commission. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ryan. Speaking of our next public hearing being July 2nd, I want all the commissioners to realize it's Monday for our next meeting instead of Tuesday. Do any commissioners at this point have any questions for Ryan? Commissioner Reinhardt.
Oh, thank you. Ryan, has there been any history of flooding in that area historically from all the runoff that exists right now?
Yeah, I should mention I do have Eric Longlet and Gary Stats here that I think could probably be better equipped to answer those technical questions. Eric, do you mind coming up?
Eric, I'd like to get in. Come on up. I'd like to get in on Commissioner Reinhardt's request too. As a sidebar, have we had, I don't recall any issues since St. Ambrose put their underground storage. You remember how Locust Street used to flood extensively anytime we had a 2 or 3 inch rain. I see similarities in these two projects as far as how they intend to retain the runoff. Am I correct in how well that system has worked?
You are correct. I'm Eric Longlet, Engineering Manager for the City of Davenport. To answer your question, Mr. Chair, it has helped tremendously in the Ambrose area with the underground detention. We have seen an increase with the underground detention helping throughout the city. We have made steps in the city to try to capture where we can, when we can. There's a large acreage of property within the city. This is 6.5 acres of roughly 120 acre drainage area. So we're only talking, what, 5%? Is that? If my math is correct. They are going to do the same, and I believe they'll show that with the underground system as what St. Ambrose did. There has been previous flooding concerns, ditch concerns. We have an older storm ordinance that was followed before. The council just passed, I think it was June 13th, I think it was, with the new storm ordinance, which is even more restrictive, with a where they have to capture in those detention basins a 100-year flood event or 8.5 inches of rainwater and release it equal to roughly a half-inch rain event. So this 6 acres, albeit it's only 5% of the main drainage area, is taking a bite out of that elephant. So hopefully it will help.
Do you have a feel for what the gallons per minute flow rate's going to be relative to the ditches and
That I do not without having the calculations and running through those.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Eric, are there any other underground systems similar to St. Ambrose in Davenport that you're aware of?
Yeah, there's, put me on the spot here. Culver's out on the west end has something similar. I think a couple of the Walgreens has that.
Okay.
It's becoming more predominant because of, instead of having the hole in the ground with mosquitoes and it gets nasty at times, and regulating and being able to utilize that expensive commercial space to put that underground, and it actually works better for us.
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No problem.
Commissioner Reinhardt, do you have another question?
Just one question. On those underground storage, is there a way to regulate the outflow so that depending on the rain event, can it be regulated, increased or decreased, much like the Corps of Engineers do with the Mississippi River?
In our new storm ordinance, it used to be hold a 100-year and release it a 5-year. Now we have a regulation, we have a quality component where we have to, up to 1.5 inches, which is 90% of the rain events in the city. We have a biological where it has to clean what comes out of there. And then also it has a stepped event, a 2-year, a 10-year, and a 100-year release, depending upon the rainfall event. But the main one is the 2-year, releasing at a lower rate than what we used to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Any additional questions at this time? Seeing none, would the petitioner or the petitioner's representative like to step forward?
Yes, my name is Tom Pasternak, and I'm the attorney for the developer. And fortunately for you, I have very little to say. I just want to make introductions to the developer and his engineer so that this is all about the development, and that's what we want to share with you today. So with that in mind, the developer, Mr. Willie Torsha, and his engineer, Mr. Devin Birch. Devin?
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about our vision for this piece of land in Davenport. First, I guess I just want to say that the meetings that we've had with your staff so far have been great. They're wonderful to work with, very helpful. The neighborhood meeting that we had last Thursday was also a great opportunity to talk with the neighborhood and those impacted most by our development and try to, let them know that we want to be the best neighbor we can be. At the same time, we are developers, so that's what we're here to do. We do want to develop this piece of property, and we hope that after our presentation tonight and our questions that you agree with us. So without any further ado, I'll get into the same presentation that we gave to the neighborhood folks last Thursday. There's been a couple of minor changes to this presentation since last Thursday, and I'll point them out when we get to them. But I guess the biggest one, and I guess I should say Ryan has covered a few of my slides, so I won't spend any time on these in the interest of time. I'll get right into a little bit about Mr. Torsha and WCT Properties and WCT Investments. Willie has been a developer for more than 25 years. His corporate office is in East Peoria. But some past projects, he's no stranger to Davenport. You can see all those projects there. I'll just hit them real quick. There's 3 of them on Elmore and 1 on 53rd, ranging from Aspen Dental, Chipotle Vitamin Shop, Men's Warehouse, the Sport Clips, All About Eyes, Book Rack, the FedEx Office, Athletico, and Natural Grocers. And recently, the Portillo's restaurant that just opened in April in Peoria. So this, if the opportunity continues to go along with one of our possible tenants, it won't be the first project for that either. So you might notice this is just a little bit different than the one Ryan threw up there, this plan. And I'll point out the only difference, this right here. So I'll get into the traffic a little bit later, but this was a suggestion of our traffic engineers. Our last plan showed a connection right here. And we took that out because they just didn't feel like the amount of stacking we had for exiting vehicles was as good as it could be for the site. And, after they said that, we agreed with them. And so we made this change. And it's going to give folks exiting, this is the leader of our development right now. That's the potential Portillo's. Again, there's no lease signed. It's a great opportunity for the restaurant. They're excited about it, but at the same time, we have to get through all these processes that we're talking about here, and we have to have more things to agree upon before their board is going to comment too much on this location. But that being the case, this would be the first piece, and when these folks leave the drive-through, which this site was designed in a way to try to be as minimally invasive to the neighbors as we can be. We'll get into some elevations in a minute, but the drive-through and any noise from that, for the most part, is directed towards 53rd. Our front door actually faces down this way to the open parking area. Our trash is up in here, way closer to the building and closer to 53rd. So when they exit, they're going to have to come down here. If they're going to make a right turn, especially before this is done, they're going to stack here and left as well. And there's way more room to stack inside of here. So I think that was a real positive change. I hope you agree. The rest of these sites are basically conceptual. I mean, we're at a zoning question now, which is more about the big picture. Is this the right zoning for this piece of property? But we realize we can't really ask for zoning without some sort of vision for what we're doing. So we wanted to put together a site plan that at least had some components and a vision to go for, and something that we can market to the public that would fit in well with a potential Portillo's here. So what you see on the right is, more of a sit-down restaurant, no drive-through on that one. All the way to the left is a smaller fast food drive-through type restaurant, and right now we just kind of have this as available retail. The beauty about PDD and why we chose that, after talking with staff and talking with aldermen, it gives you folks on the commission and it gives the neighborhood the most opportunities to see what we're doing all along the way. So we know today that if this gets approved, we're hopefully going to be moving towards Portillo's, and the other ones hopefully will fall in line too. But no matter what, when those happen, we have to come back and talk to you guys about it and make sure it fits the vision for this site. That pretty much sums up that one, other than, the Portillo's site's about 2¼ acres of the 6.5, and like Ryan said, we have one full signalized intersection and one right in, right out only, and 53rd is our only access point proposed. So quickly, just a little bit about Portillo's. If you don't know about Portillo's, it is kind of an exciting thing for the community. It's a growing business, but it has a great story. It was originally opened in 1963 in that little bitty doghouse you see right there in a Metro Chicago community of Villa Park by Dick Portillo, and he put $1,100 into that 6x12 trailer with no bathroom or running water. And in order to get the water, he had a garden hose from a nearby building. And I heard him say that he would go into a neighbor's property, an apartment, to wash his dishes. So that's gone to, they opened their 50th location in 2017, and I think Peggy mentioned that they opened their 55th location here recently. So they're in 7 states, and they hope to make Iowa the 8th. And this would be the first Portillo's in Iowa. And if you weren't familiar with the Facebook community called Bring Portillo's to the Quad Cities, it has more than 15,500 fans who are excited about hot dogs and Italian beef and chocolate cake. So here is the artistic rendering of the facility, which this would kind of be the southwest corner of it on our site. That's the front door you see there, and a patio area. And the drive-through would be behind the building here, as you see it now. So here's a street view. This is what you'd see from 53rd. It's a very attractive building. A lot of mixed materials on the outside that gives it a really cool feel, I think. The one in Peoria is fantastic. I got a picture of that coming up in a minute. Here's just a couple of side views that you can see. And there's their material types and colors. And then there's an actual picture of the Peoria store front door, and one just a little bit further away in their parking lot. We used a subsurface system at this location as well. Much like Davenport, Peoria has recently adopted water quality standards because the EPA tells us that we need to, and having clean water is important. So subsurface systems work great for that. They help us meet water quality standards because they're essentially a huge French drain. If you've ever heard of a French drain, it's basically what they are, and it's somewhat towards like what a septic system does in a septic field. It cleans that product and before it charges into the groundwater. And what little bit of what we can't recharge in the groundwater, we do control to whatever ordinance requirements are or exceed them, and make sure that we're being the best neighbors we can be to those folks who are downstream of us. So Ryan touched on a few of the development topics that came out of the neighborhood meeting, but we went into them knowing that these were 4 things that the alderman and some other folks had said to be aware of that people would be concerned about. So we wanted to address each of them briefly and what we have done in our design and our layout to try to be the best neighbor we can be. So stormwater control and site drainage, transitional buffering to adjacent residential, the traffic impact, and then lighting. So stormwater control and drainage, subsurface detention, we will be reducing to the pre-developed 2-year event as if we pretended it was a meadow. We know it's not a meadow today. It's a bunch of houses. Houses have runoff from roofs and from concrete. But your ordinance says we have to pretend like it was a beautiful grass meadow to begin with, which is on our site only about 3 cubic feet per second, leaving the site total. We're going to be dividing that into 2 different discharges. The first would be the east 60% of the site, which is the Portillo's and what would be available to the east of it. That would be the first system that goes in. And I'll just point out real quick on the site plan, that detention system will set right in this area of the parking lot with a discharge planned for the Fairhaven Road right-of-way ditch. Again, if I'm only taking approximately 60% of 3 CFS up to the 100-year event, that's about 2 CFS or so that's going to drain out of that. That's not very much water at all. And then the other system is going to be probably located up in the northwest corner based on preliminary grading that I've done so far. And again, it would discharge into the road right-of-way ditch. There's already a storm sewer pipe here that discharges about in this location. Depending on its capacity and availability, we'd either tie into it or we would discharge essentially at about the same point that it does. You know, Brian and Eric touched on this, so I'm not going to dwell on stormwater other than to say that, you know, we're taking 6.5 acres of this large area and making it better. That's really the end of it. I mean, these subsurface systems are very dependable. They have a great primary cell area that really settles out any sort of grit and debris from their parking lots and trash, and so those are regularly cleaned, and it keeps it from going on into the rest of the system and downstream. So this is a picture of a subsurface system that I designed for a Willie Torsha development in Bloomington, Illinois. That was a Slim Chickens restaurant. And that's the beginning of it there. And you see those yellow arches towards the back. Those are the chamber systems. Here's it getting installed. The first couple of chambers are going in. There were a total of 3 on that side, and then on this side of those storm manholes was another 3 chambers the same size. You can see they're about the same height as one of those workers. Okay, transitional buffering. Well, anytime we're going to develop in a neighborhood and next to neighbors, we have to be sensitive to that situation. And the neighborhood meeting was a great way to meet some of those folks and show them our vision. We actually spent the time and the money to work with an artist to come up with artistic renderings of what our development is going to look like from the folks' backyard that is directly adjacent to our property. There's a lot of topographic relief across this site. So because of that, we will be building some retaining walls in the southeast and the southwest corners of the site, and actually all the way along the west side on Lorton Avenue as well. And you'll see those in our renderings. But we've got the 25-foot setback, as Ryan mentioned. We're already proposing a 6-foot tall privacy fence along the entire south property line. Planting materials are really open for discussion. We, of course, want to meet ordinance, but we, not just meet it, we want to exceed it. And we want to make sure that we're making our backyard areas the most attractive that we can for these neighbors and work with them as reasonably as we can. So the retaining wall that we're proposing would be a tiered wall. It's the worst case is 10 feet plus or minus, maybe just a tad more in one spot. But so we're proposing like 2 5-foot walls that would stair step rather than just one big massive 10-foot wall. You'll see some ideas of that here in a minute. This is an aerial view rendering that looks west above the development. This is where Fairhaven would get cut off with a emergency access, suitable turnaround here, and This is our right in, right out. Our major intersection that's signalized with the Costco is here, and this is Portillo's. See this vegetation right here is really the trees that are already established in this neighborhood. They're gorgeous, but they're actually going to work really well at blocking some of our development, and it's a real benefit to have those there. This is just looking the opposite direction. Again, Portillo's up here, our major intersection. You can kind of see the retaining walls here if you look closely in this rendering right on the corner there. There's two of them. No access to Lorton. We originally had an access there. We were going to try to kind of force one in because we like to have that alternate thing for emergency purposes and just a little extra traffic flow. But after talking with the alderman and hearing about concerns of Lorton traffic, we decided that that wasn't a good idea. So we eliminated that from our plan. So here is from Lorton. This would be the address at the corner of 53rd and Lorton. This is, again, an artistic rendering of what those retaining walls and what some plantings could look like along that, and what our vision for this side of the site is. The next residence to the south, you can see this is the taller part of the wall here, kind of as we take this corner. That's probably where the tallest height comes in at. So this is 5115 Lorton. This would be basically the corner of Lorton and 51st. This is a backyard rendering. You can see our wall right here. It starts to get smaller and smaller as you go this way because the ground's getting higher and higher.
Will the wall keep out illegal immigrants?
We don't need extracurricular comments like that, or I'll have to ask you to leave.
Here is 2714 East 51st. There is no wall right here at this property. So it's still, our grade is still higher than their backyard, but it can be negotiated with just a gentle slope, a 3-to-1 or flatter slope in areas. Here is 2728 51st. Again, there's no retaining walls here, but you can see our 6-foot tall fence and plantings, again, that are open for negotiation there. 2742 51st, still not a wall, still not visible quite yet. You can see all the shade that these trees back here create in this yard. You can see Portillo's right there a little bit. So we start to lose grade again as we're going to the southeast corner, and eventually these walls are going to pick back up again over here. This is 5106 Fairhaven Road. There the walls are picking back up again. 5119 Fairhaven. That was actually east of Fairhaven there. So this is our vision for what the retaining walls would look like. It's 2-tiered wall. These are a little shorter than the ones we're doing, but it gives you a good concept as to what we have in mind for this area. It's another picture of a little taller wall that's not stair-stepped. And then this is your Toyota dealership on 53rd that basically is the same type of block wall that we're looking at, except they did a more taller single wall instead of tiered wall. All right, that's the end of my presentation on buffering, and we're going into traffic now. We, like Eric said, a traffic study, or like Ryan mentioned, a traffic study is underway. Traffic Impact Group is a national firm that is working on that study for us. I have Dave Wright with us tonight. He'll get up in just a minute here and kind of speak to a few of the preliminary traffic impact numbers that we have available to us. In our defense, Traffic Impact Group has only been on board for about a week, so they've kind of been under the gun to at least get us something to talk about here. But a full study should be done by the next meeting that we have with you guys in early July. So we'll be bringing that along with us at that time. But we will be adding that fourth leg we already talked about. We're basically just identically matching the ins and outs and left turns and whatnot that Costco has planned. We do have long stacking lines for both entering and exiting vehicles now. And I will let Dave come up and speak for just a minute here on some of the preliminary numbers of existing traffic versus the Costco impact versus the Portillo's or WCT impact.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I am Dave Wright with Traffic Impact Group. We have just begun our study, and we are approaching this development. We're sort of piggybacking off of the study that was done for the Costco, and we are incorporating the Costco and this development to look at the cumulative impacts from traffic from both developments together. So just basically, we know currently from the previous study, we have 33,000 cars a day on 53rd, and I think about 14,000 cars a day on Elmore. And this translates to those weekday PM peak and Saturday peak hour trips on 53rd Street, about 5,000 and 5,600. That's two-way trips coming and going during weekday PM peak hour, which is in the afternoon, Saturday peak hour, which is around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Based on looking at the development as a whole, Costco is, from the previous study, they're adding about 600 new trips to the roadway system. Our project is going to add about 204 on the weekday peak hour. Costco on Saturday is adding 831, and we're adding 300 cars to the system. I know there were concerns about Lorton Avenue and 53rd Street intersection with the closing of Fairhaven. Just took a quick look at Fairhaven. It is a cul-de-sac street, approximately 25 homes. Based on ITE trip generation numbers, that's going to generate about an additional 19 additional cars going to Lorton that aren't currently going there now during the PM peak hour. And that number goes from 34 to 61. And these are specifically the cars that are down Fairhaven that will come up and utilize Lorton that might now be using Fairhaven. That's about as far as we've gotten with the study, and we will continue to move along and have more specific things to provide, and we'll get the study in as quickly as we can, so obviously it can be reviewed by city people and the developers and everyone concerned prior to the July 2nd meeting. So I don't really have much else I can tell you right now. Thank you.
Ryan, when would you need that study in time for our July 2nd meeting?
I know they've been in contact with Gary Stats, so usually we try and provide the staff report. I think since we moved up the meeting, we'd like to get it out by Thursday afternoon prior to the public hearing. So I think Gary would need a day or two to digest it prior to that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. You will have a chance. Let them finish your presentation.
So real quick, that's just a detail, a little more of a zoom in of that intersection that we're matching up with Costco. We would be providing a new right-hand decel lane that does not exist today for traffic going east. For traffic coming from the east and going west, we would be removing what Costco is going to install as a closed median right now. We would have to remove that to add our left-hand westbound lane so that we have a dedicated left end to the site. Lighting, of course, again, residential folks next to us, we want to be sensitive to lighting. We want to provide a nice, safe atmosphere for our visitors and our employees, but at the same time, we don't want to be a nuisance to our neighbors. So the best way we have found that we can do that is to install LED lighting. It gives the designer the most number of tools in his toolbox to be sensitive to a concern like what we have. It takes less lights with LED lighting than it would with the older sodium style lights or incandescents. And then also we can use full cutoff fixtures, whereas we work our way from south to north on the site, we can make sure that we're not shining stuff to the south. We can keep lighting our site moving north. And we can do also the night sky friendly fixtures that make sure that we're putting light down onto the site where we need to. Of course, there's going to be signage on the building that has some lighting to it, but at the end of the day, we do have to meet your ordinance requirements or exceed them, which basically says that at the property lines, we need to be basically the same as the moon with our foot candles. So that's the last thing I would touch on again is the tree canopy at the rear of this development is really going to be a good deterrent to some light pollution, at least during the summer months when the leaves are on the trees. This is basically my next to last slide here, or it's my last slide since I'm not going to open it up for questions like I did at the neighborhood meeting. But you know, one thing I'd like you to think about is that a redevelopment in a city really offers the city a smart growth opportunity. Instead of taking a green field somewhere that was, you know, maybe it was a farm field and we're sprawling out, you know, into other parts of the city, we're taking an area that along a commercial corridor like 53rd is quite frankly underutilized for the land. It's not the highest and best use of that land by any means. Every tax dollar that we bring in is going to be right into the coffers because we're essentially adding very minimal public improvements to this site. A couple of turn lanes, or one turn lane and a signal, is really the only thing that the city's going to own when we're done, and have to maintain. Everything else on this is private, and so I just wanted to point that out. And then also, our water control facility will definitely improve the 6.5 acres. It has nothing there today, so we will be making that better. Of course, myself, Willie, are here for any questions. Dave, also, we have Wendy Hunter, who's part of the Portillo's team with us today, and she can answer questions directly related to Portillo's business if you have any. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions at this time? Seeing none? Thank you. Would anybody else like to step forward and speak in favor of the petition?
Good evening. My name is Christopher Glass. I actually manage the Portillo's QC Facebook page. So I hope to garner the 15,000 followers that we have today. And it's been a fun journey. It's been 2 years that we've been working on this. And certainly really happy to see what Mr. Torsha and his team has come up with for the plans for this development. I know consistently we hear in messages and things like that from a lot of our followers, you know, why not North Elmore? Why this location? And I think Devin just touched on that a little bit. You know, we know that the North Elmore area is fairly expensive for development right now, especially for a property of this type. But this is a prime location, being right next to Costco, and it offers a good visibility and it offers good traffic, I think, for the residents to be able to get in and out. But you know, something like this, I just think that we need to touch on one thing, and that's I know Portillo's and WCT wants to be good neighbors, and I think that's really important, and hearing everybody's concerns is very important as well. But the one thing that I'm always concerned with is we tend to drive growth out of town a lot of times when we get into some things like this. And you know, just from our standpoint and all the messages that we've heard, people seem to be fairly happy with this, and I hope that some of the neighbors, as they bring their concerns forth, WCT is able to address those concerns, and we can move forward with this project rather than trying to shy another developer out of the city. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other favorable comments for the petition? Seeing none, we will move on to anybody that would like to speak in opposition to the petition.
Good evening, Chairman Ingram, members of the Plan and Zone Commission. My name is Michael Malloy. I'm a Bettendorf attorney who represents 12 or more resident homeowners, property owners, taxpayers immediately to the south of this development. These residents include Craig and Charlotte McManus, Patricia and Paul Jimenez, Debbie and Kenneth Rolfs, Don and Dolores Angler, Bob Schickling, Casey Carruthers, and Zachary and Jeanette Richards. Now, folks, first of all, make no mistake about this. This is a mega development. They've shown you this proposed site plan here. You're talking about 2 drive-in restaurants, a sit-in restaurant, and then a 4th retail establishment. 6.5 acres. They're asking you to rezone from what it is right now. It's zoned R1 residential district, and they're asking you to rezone this to a high-density commercial planned unit development. My clients are opposed to this rezoning because it's going to not only create traffic problems for the residents on Fairhaven and Lorton Avenue, it's also going to encroach upon the peaceful enjoyment of their residential neighborhood properties and be detrimental to their residential property values. First of all, we want to make clear, we are not opposed to Portello's coming to Davenport. That's not the issue here, folks. The issue is they picked a wrong location to put this particular development at. There's hundreds of commercial property sites already zoned commercial in Davenport that these folks can go look at and locate in tomorrow if they want to without going through any rezoning process here. Yet they've chosen a long-standing, low-density residential properties along the southern border of 53rd. And make no mistake, while this is 53rd is a commercial corridor, all the properties to the south of this particular development are low-density residential, single-family homes, and that extends all the way down to Kimberly Road. My clients are not adverse to development, and they would consider withdrawing their opposition to the rezoning if certain conditions were met. And first of all, I'm just going to ask anybody present today who has reservations or is objecting to the rezoning, please stand up or raise their hand. As you can see, there's a lot of people here today that don't think this is the right location for this rezoning. And Mr. Chairman, when you asked for people in the public here to get up if they were supporting this rezoning, I didn't see one resident in this crowd get up to support this particular rezoning. However, Craig, would you please pass out the letter that we have addressed to the Plan and Zone Commission here so they have a copy of it?
That letter will have to go to the staff.
That's fine. Give it to staff.
I have to go to staff.
We are looking at if this rezoning does go forward, we are looking at this Plan and Zone Commission doing its duty as a public body. You're not a rubber stamp for Portello's, to add conditions to this particular rezoning that might make it viable to the neighborhood residents to the south. These conditions would include vacating the area south of the intersection of 53rd Street and Lorton Avenue and installing a cul-de-sac there with a gate only for emergency vehicles to enter the residential area. Secondly, the repaving of the blacktop on Lorton Avenue and Fairhaven Road between 53rd Street and 46th Street is another issue that the neighbors wished that needs to be addressed regarding this particular rezoning. This particular rezoning is obviously going to increase traffic in this area, and we think it would be appropriate to repave with blacktop Lorton Avenue and Fairhaven Road. Third, install a three-way stop sign at the intersection of 51st Street and Lorton Avenue. Fourth, install speed bumps on Lorton Avenue between 46th Street and 53rd Street to slow traffic down if they were on Lorton Avenue. And fifth, to prohibit commercial trucks of a certain size from traveling on either Lorton Avenue or Fairhaven Road. We are here today to request the Commission to consider all of these conditions pursuant to this public hearing and to incorporate these conditions into any commission recommendation you may make to the Davenport City Council on this rezoning. Now, there are other people here, I'm sure, that also want to address you on this matter, and I'm going to, at this time, turn the matter over to other residents who also may have specific other issues they want to bring up to this commission. Thank you for your time and attention today.
Staff?
I just wanted to point out to the draw to the commission's attention. I did receive a letter, an email. I didn't have time to put it in the packet. I will put it in the packet. I received an email from a property owner directly west of the development that in part was opposed to the closing of Lorton Avenue. I just wanted to give you that update, and I'll include that email on the next submission.
Closing of Lorton Avenue?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Would anybody like to speak in opposition? Please step forward and identify yourself.
My name is Charlotte McManus, and I do oppose the rezoning. I live with my husband, Craig McManus, at 4728 Lorton, along with our 153-pound Great Dane. We have lived on Lorton Avenue. We purchased in 1972, 46 years to the date. We, in that time, have accumulated 2 3/4 acres of magnificent property, absolutely beautiful. I love Lorton Avenue, and I love the area that I live in and reside in. I would have left long ago. I'm no longer a young woman. I used to run 1,000 miles a year over those roads, and of course they weren't developed back then. But I really oppose what is happening. Lorton Avenue is in very critical condition, the road. It's dangerous right now. And if all this traffic, which they are underestimating, because there's going to be a lot more traffic, and if any of you have been out there, you know what it is right now. It's a dangerous area. It will be. We have peace and tranquility somewhat. Our lots are large, beautiful places. And people who come and visit us say they never even knew this area existed. It's just unbelievable. In any major city, they'd be worth millions of dollars. I'm just so sorry for my neighbors. Even though I am closer to 46, at 4728, we won't be able to see these places. But my neighbors on 51st and Fairhaven, they are great people, and they deserve some recognition as to what they've contributed to this community in this area. You've all had a paper telling us what we would like to have done to Lorton. Lorton will become a very dangerous place. I worry about the children that live there, the animals, and of course, all of our friends and neighbors. It will definitely change, and something will really drastically happen. Fatalities will happen, and somebody will have to take responsibility for that. I would absolutely take away my opposition to this if some of our requests are met to keep us safe and alive. I think you owe that to all of us. So that's all I have to say, but I'm sure there are other people who have requests too. Thank you.
Next.
I'm Craig McManus, and I hope you guys can see why I've been married to this woman for 56 years. I am incredibly proud of her, and she was executive director of Miss Iowa for 12 years. She's put a presentation on at the National Convention of the Miss America pageant. I've been a one-on-one salesman all my life. I'm one of the top guys in the country, but I hate meetings and I don't do dog and pony shows. And so I'm very uncomfortable here, but I think that I am so concerned that our street will become I-74 West. And if you look at the way this thing's been designed, all this traffic, and once they figure it out, they're going to come down Lorton. So that's why I oppose this thing, but I finally decided the only thing that I can do, and I have the resources to hire one of the best attorneys in the Quad Cities in dealing with something like this. So I'm proud to have Mike as my attorney. Kluhl is a tremendous guy as our alderman, and with that I say I am totally opposed unless you guys can kind of come up with, and the ladies, you all can come up with some help with us to keep, you know, what's going to happen. And I'm concerned with the way this whole thing was laid out, that we're in trouble with the traffic. 53rd Street looks like Ho Chi Minh Trail after the bombers hit it. And that's sad. That's not something that I really am too concerned about because I don't drive the street. But anyway, I thank you for giving us the consideration, and if you guys can help us, please do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Mary Nelson. I live at 1633 Irishwood Circle. I am not one of the residents that will be impacted here, but I do have a couple of questions. First of all, for the traffic folks, the people that were doing the traffic study, if they're piggybacking off of Costco's traffic study, they need to be aware that Costco only did one traffic study, and it was in February, and they did not come back and do a second one. So I think that they need to be very careful with the numbers that they're using from the Costco traffic study. And number two, I would like to know from you, before Costco showed up and before these guys showed up, what was the long-term plan for Davenport for this area? Do these fit into the plan that Davenport originally had laid out for long-term growth? Does anybody have the answer to that?
We are not at liberty to answer that right now. It'll come back in 2 weeks. We'll have more comments.
Okay.
Staff is taking record of your
Okay.
questions.
All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Talbert, and I'm a resident at 4822. Thank you for hearing me today. Members of the board, I'm not involved currently with the group talking about what they want to do with Lorton Avenue and the traffic. However, I do have a concern, and it's very similar to what I've already heard. That is a dangerous road, and I don't expect any of you to be aware of what the road is like because it is kind of hidden back in the way. It's hilly. It's a chip tar road with open ditches, no sidewalks. And there's a lot of people that walk through there, and we enjoy that neighborhood and the ability to do that, whether it's with the kids taking bikes or walking the dog or just going to visit the neighbors. I did listen to the traffic study, and it talked about, you know, the amount of traffic would increase based off of what I interpreted to be the closing of Fairhaven Road by that amount. But what we're seeing today and what we've seen over the last few months, especially with the Costco construction, there has been quite an increase in traffic down Lorton Avenue, and it's the cut-through traffic. The residents, my neighbors, generally observe the speed limits and are very courteous to people walking, slowing, going to the other side of the road, or just, you know, making themselves aware that, you know, they're coming or taking time to be cautious for one another. The cut-through traffic does not observe those courtesies, and I think that's what our concern is today. After looking at the proposals, A lot of it I agree upon with you know, fixing up that road, but realistically, if we get a heavy flow of traffic and the traffic study is incorrect as far as what number of cars would be coming through and the speeds that they would be going, I don't see speed bumps as being a deterrent to speed. Speed cameras are, well, it's kind of under legal scrutiny right now. I don't think that's going to deter anything because people learn where they are and they slow down for a second and fly on. Plus, there's expense with those things. Widening the road and putting in sidewalks would include doing storm sewers and replacing the open ditches that are there. That's a lot of money that the city really, I don't believe, needs to throw out to try to resolve that issue, and that's not going to slow anybody down besides. So let's not take good money and throw it down, you know, throw it after bad. I'm more than willing to, since I'm on Fairhaven, I'm more than willing to go over to Lorton and go out another direction because that's the safe thing to do. That's the economical thing to do. What I would like the council to do is consider doing a cul-de-sac at the north side of Lorton so we don't have that through traffic. I think that would be a very cost-effective way of moving forward and isolating the residents from that traffic. You're eliminating the need for sidewalks and those type of safety issues. We've heard the concerns. And I also agree with doing the resurfacing. Take a ride down Lorton Avenue tonight on your way home or tomorrow, and you're going to see there's several areas that are broken up from sewer repairs and things like that. They just make it really rough. There's a lot of patching in there, and maybe if you if you look at me and think that I ride a motorcycle, well, you're right, and so does my wife. But it's a very dangerous area, and I think as a community, and with your help today, I think we can resolve these issues and make sure everybody's safe. We can protect property values, residents, and perhaps make a very welcoming statement to our new neighbors to the north.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Kathy Slichtine, and I've lived at 4921 Fairhaven for 44 years. So I travel that route every day, all the time. And I know this seems trivial to some people, but at the bottom of Lorton, where 51st intersects, is a duck crossing. And you will see a mama duck and her baby ducks cross from the pond, because there's a pond right there. And you will see the mama duck and the baby ducks crossing all the time. Well, you know, this will be eliminated when all these cars come. These ducks will be killed. And I've already witnessed it once before, because the cars come down so fast down Lorton. It's a hill. You come down really fast, and, you know, it's part of the nature that we've all experienced. We've lived in this area forever, and these ducks are part of the beauty we've lived with. This will all be gone because commercial buildings are coming in. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Beth Erickson. I live off 2711 East 51st Street. I moved into this neighborhood 2 years ago, and like a lot of people have said, I never knew this place existed. It just totally floored me that there was a neighborhood like this in the middle of town, but you felt like you were out in Bluegrass or Walcott. It's large lots. You know, I'm not going to go into more detail because it's already been said. Not only are there ducks, but there's also deer, there's turkey, there's a lot of wildlife back there as well. But I noticed you've done a traffic study on Lorton and Fairhaven, but you totally left out 51st Street, because those people that are on Fairhaven, they're going to have to cut over to Lorton somehow. 51st is exactly like Lorton. It's narrow, it's patchy. When you turn in from Lorton onto 51st, there's a huge bump on there. There's no sidewalks. So I'm a member of the Facebook for Bring Portillo's to the Quad Cities. I love me some Portillo's, but I do not want it a block away from me. I want to maintain integrity of our neighborhood. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Ann Whitmer Wagman. I just moved here because I'm getting a divorce, and it's not final till September 18th. My husband will not give me any money, not one penny. The lawyer won't help me. My husband won't help me. My dad, Marlon Lee Whitmer, he's a minister, won't help me. My stepmother won't help me. My mother passed away 7 years ago, and my dad and Annie Hockhausen, they wrote at Vera French that they both are my parents. Annie is my stepmom. I'm not quite sure why I'm here or what I'm doing, but there's a reason. My lawyer is Justin Title. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I'm moving down to Texas soon to help the children in Texas. I'm a very loving parent, very, very, very loving parent. I have a 20-year-old daughter. She's going to college at St. Ambrose this fall. She's in Muscatine College right now. Her name's Brianna Elizabeth. And she is not helping me because she's 20. She's scared. She doesn't want her parents to separate or divorce.
Ma'am, we're discussing the rezoning for the Portillos. Do you have any comments on that?
For what?
We're discussing the rezoning on 53rd for...
Well, I live on 63rd.
Again, we're here to hear comments about the rezoning.
Well, I don't like Facebook, and I don't like the internet because I can't find a job. The library blocked my password. Now tell me, does that make any sense to you?
Ma'am, we're not here to discuss your personal life. I'm sorry. Do you have any comments about the rezoning?
No, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Harold Reed.
Could you pull the mic up, please? Thank you.
I'm Harold Reed. I'm at 4919 Lorton. Christy and I moved, bought the property there just a little over a year and a half ago. And we bought it for a reason. It was a neighborhood that surround that dilapidated property. We spent the last year and a half trying to bring it up so that the properties around it would increase. We've done that. In the last 3 months, I've been there on a daily basis and watched traffic increase already. Most of it from out of the neighborhood. So now it's going to increase because of the closing of Fairhaven. We all understand that. But to bring the commercial properties in is going to totally abrupt that neighborhood. I believe that's why Mr. McGinnis and his wife has been there so long. The people on Fairhaven's been there so long. My plan was to be there probably until I die. But the way that it's looking, it's not going to be that comfortable anymore. The gentleman that talked about the families that walk, we see those families every day. It's not going to happen once this starts because of the traffic going to increase, and it's dangerous. It's going to be more and more dangerous. I can only piggyback on what everybody else has said. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. And the neighbor to the north and the south of me, not able to be here tonight. But that's why I stood, because they feel the exact same way.
Thank you. Next. Please hold your applause.
Hello, my name is Brandy Alderson-Hurst. I live at 4834 Fairhaven Court. And I'm really against this rezoning and closing Fairhaven because that's going to affect bus routes, which no one has even talked about. Because right now, it is a major safety issue. The bus drops off at 51st and Fairhaven currently, but now my kids, they're going to have to walk even a longer distance without sidewalks, increased traffic, because they can't tell me that there's not going to be increased traffic. We drive this road, I drive this road dozens of times a day. The roads are in horrible, horrible condition. And while Portillo's is making every effort to block themselves off from these homeowners and being a good neighbor, we don't know about the other tenants. We don't know how great of a neighbor these other 3 tenants are going to be. You're still taking away property, very nice homes, mature trees, and increasing traffic. I think it's a major safety issue and the wrong decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next.
I'm Eileen Schissel, and I live on Fairhaven Road. I have a USB port that has pictures of the water when we get water coming down 51st, and I mean not 51st, but Lorton and that. I don't know if anybody can show you what it looks like.
I think you would need to submit that to staff, and they
So
will.
Ryan?
Yes, to Ryan. Yeah.
But there's 2 dates on there. There's July 5th and July 22nd when we had the rain. And there's a house that is on straight across from 51st. That's sort of like they have the creek that goes right down by them. In the pictures, it will show you that the water is up to the big culvert and drains all the way back along the property that's right across from it. There's a lot of people that creek goes behind and it fills up their backyard when we have water coming down it. And it doesn't take much rain to cause the creeks, well, I call them creeks, on both sides of the road to fill up. So I did have the pictures there if you want to see them. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to step forward?
Hello, I apologize for any redundancy, but I do feel there's some power in this. My name is Ben Jopton. I'm a resident of 6th Ward of Davenport, but do not live directly adjacent to the land which is proposed to be rezoned from residential to commercial. I believe this project can have a negative impacts on this area of Davenport and the neighbors adjacent to this land as a whole. Therefore, I speak to you against this proposal, not as someone that doesn't want this in his backyard, but as a concerned citizen. Further, I'm not speaking to you as someone who is not in favor of Portillo's, but the proposed rezoning and development of this land. I'm a fan of Portillo's and seek out a location whenever I am in the Chicagoland area, as well as have been closely following the Bring Portillo's to the Quad Cities Facebook page. That is why at the neighborhood meeting last weekend, I was the one who said it felt like a gut punch to have to argue against a proposal which would bring a restaurant I desire to our community. This is because the overall success of a restaurant such as this, as well as multiple other businesses proposed in this area, will have negative impacts to the neighbors of this proposed development and is against current zoning and master plans of the city. Also, I speak before the Commission in order to ask for assistance. I ask for assistance that comes from the basic philosophy of government I have been taught, which is a government should do for the citizens what the citizens can't do for themselves. We as citizens of Davenport do not have the ability to properly plan and zone a city that works for the safety and investment of all taxpayers, which I realize includes both homeowners and business owners. Therefore, to provide the assistance needed by making a fair decision, I request that you ponder these words: diligence, protection, and contradiction. Diligence is in reference to making sure we gather and analyze appropriate data prior to making any decision. During the neighborhood meeting, a representative of this rezoning request pointed out the closing of Fairhaven Road and needing to perform some traffic studies. That's been alluded to this evening. At that point in time, there was no mention of whether this study will be conducted in a few weeks, a few months, or a few years. However, I must ask that no study be performed or completed until the Costco development is also completed. The reason I ask this is the Costco project has already planned to block left turn lanes at the Fairhaven and 53rd intersection, preventing vehicles heading westbound on 53rd from turning south onto Fairhaven and vehicles traveling north on Fairhaven from turning west onto 53rd. Once the Costco project is complete and the traffic is affected in this manner, a study will then be able to provide accurate or near accurate data to understand the flow of traffic on 53rd with Fairhaven completely blocked. Even then, a study would have to extrapolate data to include any increase of traffic to this proposed development, as a successful business such as Portillo's will potentially draw multiple hundreds to 1,000 vehicles a day. If you haven't, just visit a Portillo's any evening and see how efficient they are at processing their customers through their restaurant. They get a large number of customers. Even then, studying traffic on 53rd alone won't be diligent enough to gather the full impact of this proposed development. As mentioned, any study should also include traffic on 51st, 46th, Lorton, at a minimum, with consideration of extension onto Fairhaven. While I am focusing on being diligent about studying the effects of traffic, I believe it is fair that a study be performed regarding the value of the homes in the adjacent areas. A question was posed at the neighborhood meeting last week about how home value had been affected by the addition of Portillo's in other cities. Whether it is positive or negative, the citizens deserve to know, and the Commission deserves to know before any decision is made which will affect the citizens of Davenport. The second word I asked you to ponder was protection. This pertains directly to helping the citizens do what they can't do for themselves. Last week at the neighborhood meeting, there was a member of City Council speaking about protections. While he was using the term in a different context than myself, we as citizens must rely on our government to provide us certain protections. We have zoning regulations to protect the investments of homeowners and business people. I have mentioned that I feel development such as this is being proposed will negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood. This will come through changes in traffic, safety, potential water runoff, and in turn, potentially decreasing property value. I've listened to multiple conversations about this topic where people say, I feel sorry for those neighbors to the south. If people have that inclination, then it's an indicator to the Commission that a plan for rezoning is likely to have a negative impact for which the neighbors require protection. The prime example to what I am speaking are the homes to be sold to make this development occur. Those same homeowners were mostly in opposition to the Costco development. With the decision to rezone that land, they realized there would be likely less demand for their homes should they be in position to sell. However, this development has come along and been actually a positive for those homeowners, as someone has made them an offer for their home, and they are more than glad to relocate given these recent developments. While this is a positive for those homeowners, there is the potential to just pass the negative impact to those homeowners to the south and even the west. I'm referencing homeowners on Frederick's Court. I've been taught that two wrongs don't make a right, and believe allowing this land to be rezoned will add another wrong to the decision which was made to rezone the land for Costco. Should a decision be made to approve this project, then it should do so with a stipulation to protect further residents abutting 53rd, such as those in Frederick's Court, along Lorton, and even along Woodland Avenue, by looking to also rezone that land in the same manner with potential offers to purchase their homes. The third and last word I asked you to ponder was contradiction. Recently, the City of Davenport has demonstrated a tendency to contradict master plans when it comes to rezoning requests for developments. I'm referencing the Rhythm City Casino and Costco. I feel there has been a trickle-down of decisions for which I have personally disagreed, which is leading to this rezoning request. I do not feel as a city we can continue to contradict the master plans for which valuable time and tax money has been utilized to develop. Again, a prime example of this contradiction was made at the neighborhood meeting last week. When someone asked how this land was zoned on the master plan, a city employee answered without hesitation, residential. We even have people making contradictory statements when it comes to the traffic situation on 53rd with this proposed development. For example, I've already spoken about how the Costco development had intended to change the traffic flow at the intersection of 53rd and Fairhaven. We as the public were told this change was being made for safety reasons and that left-hand turns across traffic at this intersection would be too dangerous or would back up traffic. Now we have a plan that indicates it will be safe for a significant amount of more people to making left-hand turns across traffic to access this proposed development. I understand this intersection will be controlled by a light, but I believe there needs to be a valid study that looks at how allowing this type of traffic flow can be safe and efficient given the increase in vehicles there will be with both Costco and this proposed development. To further this contradiction, there was another member of the City Council speaking at the neighborhood meeting that stated once Veterans Parkway is completed, it will help offload traffic on 53rd. I'm curious, what will drive traffic to Veterans Parkway if nothing further develops in that area? Instead, we keep rezoning land along 53rd for developments such as this. This leads me to my last contradiction, which is to remind the Commission of the energy being utilized to foster the Elmore Corners concept. Again, if we keep rezoning land on 53rd, what development is going to want to go to that Elmore's Corner location? If we as a city continue to allow businesses to buy cheap land just because we have a free market economy and then have to rezone land to make the land fit their proposal, our government is being contradictory of their promise to the people. I thank you for your time and consideration. I hope the Commission is diligent in gathering information so we can quit contradicting current plans for the City of Davenport, instead protect the investments of the citizens of Davenport. If the Commission does so, then I believe you will make a recommendation to not support rezoning the land for this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to step forward?
I'm Bob Herman. I live at 5105 Fairhaven, which is where 51st dead ends into Fairhaven. And I understand everyone at Lorden. I understand all the traffic patterns. I worked across the street from Portillo's, and they would have to have police on Golf Road in Schaumburg directing traffic. 3 lanes in each direction, huge median, but they would handle 150 cars an hour through the drive-through. They had parking for 150, 200 cars. So the numbers we've seen tonight aren't realistic. I put a left-hand turn lane, they back up to the fire station. You got people waiting to turn right into Costco, people waiting to turn left into Portillo's, traffic coming on, turning right into Portillo's. The fire protection is going to be put off because they're not going to be able to get out. I know they got a light there. People aren't going to stop because they don't see it. Now you've not only put our neighborhood at risk, but you put the entire northeast quadrant of Davenport at risk. So when the traffic study does come out, people do need to pay attention to that, as long as that left-hand turn lane has enough run-up, but it needs to take into account all of those factors. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next. Seeing none, commissioners, any questions at this time? Oh, sorry, we do have one more.
I didn't get to see the original plans, but I had a question about how far back that went. Did that?
Ma'am, could you step up to the microphone, identify yourself, and...
I'm sorry, Lisa Van Damme. I live at 2771 East 51st Street.
Thank you.
Right on the corner of 51st and Fairhaven. So I wondered how far back this was sold. Are all the big trees getting taken out that divide those front houses and then to the second houses that it's going to be right in their backyard?
I can't answer that. We have not seen definitive plans at this point. Whether the developer would like to comment at this time, that's his choice.
And the fact that that is exactly where she's talking about that water. I could show you pictures where my whole driveway is full and goes all the way down the side through our backyard and cuts through our neighbor's backyard.
If you'd like to submit those to staff before our next meeting, they can include those in our packet.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
My name is Diane Seifers. I live at 4920 Fairhaven Road. And I share many of the concerns that we've heard tonight, but I had an interesting discussion today with some of my coworkers who do not live in my neighborhood but are also citizens, and we were discussing some of the difficulties with Chick-fil-A, and particularly on Saturdays we have to have a police officer come out and direct traffic because traffic backs up onto 53rd, and they were saying, well, God, what is Portillo's going to add to that? And obviously, everybody's really excited to see Portillo's come in, but they're concerned about the location. And that got me to thinking about, density in that area. And really, our residential neighborhood serves as kind of a buffer and a help with some of that traffic by not being a commercial area that people are trying to turn in and out of. And I'm thinking that it really doesn't make sense to take that away from the area, that we're actually kind of a benefit there. And I hate to see residential neighborhoods in this town rezoned for commercial development simply because it's the cheapest alternative, I think, when there's other commercial areas available in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Lammers.
This is for city staff. I know there are plans scheduled for 53rd to have some expansion. Are the streets that are being affected by this potential development under consideration as part of that project at this time?
Hello, Eric Longlet with Engineering Department, Public Works. To answer your question, we're in the design stage right now. The grant that we are receiving, the city is receiving for 53rd from Brady to basically the fire station, is just for 53rd itself. We'll be looking at potential turn lanes on side streets as part of that design, but at this time we haven't taken it that far. The side streets itself are not in the program to be rehabbed.
Okay, thank you. And then, we had similar concerns for the Toyota dealership on 53rd and Eastern, with the neighbors voicing almost identical concerns. Since that's come to fruition, are we seeing those concerns come true? Have they been calmed? Can you give any idea of what the progress has been made in that area?
The biggest concern we hear from the Toyota is the lighting, and that is one aspect of the city ordinance that we tend to deal with lighting at the property line. The city ordinance doesn't restrict the maximum lighting internal to the property, but that is a discussion we could have, and through ordinance limit the overall power of the lighting, so it's not these super bright lights that are just focused down on their property. And that may be something we want to address with the new zoning ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Yeah, this is a question for the developer. How critical is Lorton to access to the facilities that you want to build?
Well, could you please step into the mic?
Sorry. Lorton is not critical to us at all.
Is there entrance or ingress or egress that you plan on any portion of your development coming in off of Lorton?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing for REZ 18-09 and ROW 18-01. It will come back to us on Monday, July 2nd. Or, sorry, 08, sorry, correct. Those that are in attendance for these two public hearings, if you'd like to leave at this time, please do so. Hold your conversation until you get out in the hallway. We've still got a lot of business to do, and I'll move on to our next public hearing item, which is public hearing for case number REZ 18-09. Can you please hold your comments till you get out in the hallway? Public hearing for case number REZ 18-09, request to rezone 8.134 acres MOL of property located east of Utica Ridge Road and south of East 50 Can we please? East 56th Street from CO Office Shop District to C2 General Commercial District. Jared Engler, McCarthy Bush Company, petitioner. Matt?
Mr. Commissioner, I will be abstaining from this case.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't notice.
Thank you. I'm Matt Flynn, Community Planning and Economic Development Department. The next rezoning public hearing is for a request to zone property at the northeast corner of East 56th Street and Utica Ridge Road from CO, which is Office Shop District, to C2, which is General Commercial. And within your packet, I went ahead and enlisted all the permitted uses that are currently found in the code. I like to do that because sometimes it points out some really antiquated terminology and things that just simply aren't used out there. But I tried to annotate the differences in the overview. Generally speaking, CO is an office and transitional zoning district. Because of the pyramid nature of our code, it allows everything from single family, multifamily, residential, but it also goes into uses such as pharmacies, personal services, schools, clinics, and studios. The C2 district is called general commercial for a reason, because it allows a pretty wide variety of commercial uses. That would include retail, eating and drinking places, auto-related uses, even if there's no outdoor storage contractors' shops. Go quickly with the location. Here's the site that I mentioned. Zooming in a little bit, it's 8.134 acres. The villas at Crow Creek, condos are here, additional commercial development, again, Utica Ridge Road. The comprehensive plan, future land use map, really just has two designations. We have, in red, we have regional commercial, and the lighter color is residential general. And I'll go through those descriptions again. I think it's important to emphasize that residential general does not mean exclusively residential. It does allow for some exceptions that we can cover real briefly. Here's the existing zoning map. You can see there's a little anomaly down here in the corner. To be honest, as long as assuming that there's a rezoning takes place, we have a legal description for the 1.34 acres. We really don't need to exclude that little sliver out of the rezoning. That probably goes back many years, probably long before East 56th Street was zoned. But again, the CO is the office shop district. We have general commercial to the south, and then there's our PDD planned development district, which includes the shopping center that's anchored by Hy-Vee. Again, here's the description, residential general, and I won't read that given the time, but it does allow for, I'll say, some higher intensity uses, particularly along the edges of such districts. I'll mention, even though we haven't received all of our technical review comments, that Utica Ridge Road is an arterial street, 56th Street is a collector, and we haven't heard. I'll defer to those in the audience, but I think the main issue is going to be the compatibility and the ability to transition use rather than traffic generation, because even in a CO district and a large clinic or office development would generate fairly significant amount of traffic, but being a collector and arterial street, we're in pretty good shape to handle that. Again, there in your packet, there's a regional commercial designation. I did include some slides that the petitioner included at the neighborhood meeting. Again, since we're not talking about planned development, these should just be considered examples of the type of development they envision here. Mentioned the neighborhood meeting. I was not in attendance. I had another appointment. I understand there were about 35 people there. I know Wayne was there on behalf of staff. He can answer any questions. So again, this is a public hearing. Here are some of the questions that we expect to be evaluating over the next week and a half as we hear testimony and consider other facts that will weigh into our recommendation. That compatibility, are there uses in C2 that just simply are not appropriate for this location, being able to do that transition, and then again the traffic and parking concerns. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wayne. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Lammers.
Could you have Wayne come up and summarize any issues with the neighborhood meeting?
I'll defer to Wayne. We'll put him to work.
Yeah, get him up here.
Besides the fact that I passed my notes on to Matt quite a while ago, I'll do my best to try and remember, since I still have 4 cases to come before you tonight. Actually, I'm drawing a blank. I'd have to go back upstairs and get my notes. I was caught off guard with this. I seem to remember it was primarily the uses that would be generated or could be generated by the development. Not this development that's kind of driving the rezoning, but the remainder of the property. Not so much concerned with traffic, because obviously they are separated from this, and there'd be no reason for traffic to come to this development into that area, to the north especially. There was a lot of discussion about limiting the types of uses that could go into the development, and working potentially with the developer to either covenant or maybe with the city to restrict types of uses that would also go into that. I guess I would leave that open to the public that's here to, I'm sure I've missed a few of those. Again, I don't have those notes in front of me, to have them expand a little bit further and catch whatever I have missed.
As I was at the meeting, I would have to agree with Wayne that that's, in summation, a good representation of what was said, but we'll definitely allow the neighbors to speak shortly.
If I could just chime in real quick, I was not trying to put Wayne on the spot at his last meeting, but again, just in talking with some people on the phone and seeing comments coming in, I think it's a question of where you draw the line. Some people actually mentioned that they knew that the property north of 56th Street was zoned for offices, so I think it's just concerned maybe more about some of those particularly impactful uses that are allowed in C2.
Thank you, Matt. Any additional questions? Seeing none, would the petitioner like to step forward and explain their petition?
Good evening. My name's Tom Bush. I live at 4219 East 59th Street. I represent the McCarthy Bush Group, the holders of the land. I am also a resident at the Villas of Crow Valley, the condo community. I'm also on our board of our homeowners association, so I'm in a very interesting position, needless to say. But having said that, the reason I support this is when I look at the 20-year history of the Crow Valley area, which McCarthy Bush has developed. I go back to one of the first early years when we had an offer from Walmart Superstore right there on 53rd, right smack in the middle of our property. My brother and I entertained that offer for about 2 seconds because, you know, quite honestly, we wouldn't be able to live with ourselves. We wanted to leave and create a subdivision, commercial subdivision, residential area that we could 20 years, 25, 30 years, as our generational family members join McCarthy Bush, look back with pride that we created that. And quite honestly, I think that's what we achieved. I think the area that we've achieved is considerably, arguably, one of the best areas in Davenport, Bettendorf area, and really in the Quad Cities. It's a wonderful, wonderful community out there that we've created. We also, besides Walmart, we've passed on other businesses that we deemed not to fit the area. We're very conscious. We live out there. I live out there. I've got 2 family members that live out in the Villas of Crow Valley. So we have a personal vested interest in this. I believe in the developers, Stacy and Chris Spellman. They're wonderful young people. They're taking a chance. They want to better their life and with an entrepreneurial spirit. And I believe that's why this project, I like the design of it. I like all the design elements. And it fits as a transitional project in our neighborhood. And that is important as well. It's an infill area. I see low profile, kind of a walking community through that area, and I think this project kicks that off. I ask you for your support. We've created something special out there. We continue to. We'll be very diligent in what we allow out there. And I think I could speak for all the members of Villas of Crow Valley. You know, a lot of us get letters in our mailbox, you know, every other month saying, hey, if you have an interest in selling, please, you know, give me a call. Well, that will continue, I'm sure, because you know what? We've created something special out there, and we're going to keep creating something special. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Would anybody else like to step forward and speak in favor of this petition?
Hi there, my name is Stacy Spillum. I'm the owner of Pure Hair Studio. Currently, we reside at 5515 Utica Ridge Road, next to the Gentry Shop. So we are hoping to stay right where we have been for the last 5 years. So we are just wanting to build an 8,000 square foot building on the corner there. And we are working with Bush to hopefully rezone it so that Pure Hair Studio will occupy about 4,000 square feet. We will have an excess of an additional 4,000 square feet to hopefully just gain some really great tenants that kind of complement what we do in our studio, which is hair. And we will have about 70 women coming in and out of our doors every day, and a few men as well. But we just hope to be able to have neighbors next to us that do the same thing that we do. And that includes a retail store, whether it's a clothing boutique, home decor store, or a coffee shop. So that's why the rezoning is important to us and why we are seeking that out. So I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to step forward and speak in favor of this petition? Would anybody like to speak forward in opposition?
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jim Payne, and I'm the president of the Crow Valley Villas Association. And I represent a number of our homeowners, as well as the 12 residents that are immediately adjacent to the property. Our neighborhood itself is comprised of 64 family residences, which are located just north and east of the proposed zoned area. 12 of the 64 residents are physically within the 200 feet of the proposed zoning area. Most of the neighborhood buildings were built in the 2004 time frame. The total market value of the 64 residences is estimated to be about $23 million, or about $350,000 per resident. The entire community pays about $500,000 in property taxes, or about $7,000 per residence. And to my knowledge, the proposed property to be rezoned has been a CO classification since calendar year 2000. And this classification was a major consideration in many of our residents' home purchase decisions. Historically, our neighborhood has been inhabited by senior citizens. It has been a very safe and quiet area to live with little outside traffic. The residences have been a very attractive investment for homeowners as they are in a beautiful and secluded area near Crow Valley Golf Club. Residences being resold are typically on the market for very short time periods, primarily because many senior citizens love the peaceful setting and want to live there. The Villas of Crow Valley Neighborhood Association greatly respects the reputation and integrity of the McCarthy Bush Development Group. They've been a wonderful neighbor throughout the past several years, and we strongly believe they will continue to do so through this next development phase. As Tom indicated, 3 of the Bush family members currently live in our neighborhood. Our main concern with the rezone request is that our future neighborhood issues will not be addressed after the development is completed, because McCarthy Bush will no longer be in control of the area, and the next generation of owners will operate under a more lenient C2 zoning standards. The C2 area will likely bring additional issues, noise, nighttime lighting nuances, maybe increased neighborhood traffic, as well as drainage issues throughout our community. In summary, the neighbors that I represent are opposed to rezoning the area to C2 from CO. They believe the proposed reclassification to full commercial is not consistent with the attributes of the surrounding neighborhoods and ultimately will diminish property values.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to step forward?
My name is Patricia Harris. I live at 4219 East 58th Street. I wanted to start by thanking you for your public service. I know it's often a thankless job to balance the different interests, and I appreciate your time. I agree with Tom Bush, and I have utmost respect for the Bushes, that they have created a wonderful area, and they have made some decisions that might be against their business interest to support the larger interest of a attractive community, which is what we feel we have, and that's what caused us to purchase these properties. I will say, though, as a transitional project, the C0 designation, the current designation, does appear to allow for the salon. We're very much in favor of this business owner and her salon. What I'm understanding and hearing is that an additional 4,000 square footage for the desired uses, home decor, coffee shop, retail, I think it would fundamentally change the nature of that property. There are a number of those establishments within several blocks. There's Dunn Coffee, there's a number of businesses nearby. So I'm not sure I'm seeing this as an either or, and we are receptive to some restrictions, but I think the devil is always in the detail. How do you try to cherry pick or define within a detailed code the number of exceptions that would be suitable and still be attractive from a business standpoint? I also feel that restaurants, this would be opening us up to a McDonald's or maybe a gas station, and I think we've all seen what's happened along 53rd on the Bettendorf side with the Quick Trip and a number of other retail establishments that are within half a mile of this area. Restaurants are prone to turnover. Businesses, I have all the best wishes and hopes for our neighbor in the McCarthy Bush business and the salon. Things can change, and once the designation is changed, it's changed. To quote Bob Halderman at a different hearing, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's hard to put it back in. So I would say that I have no objection. I think the C0 use is suitable for our area because just walking around on the weekends or taking runs in the morning or evening walks or just driving around, offices tend to be quiet in the evenings and on the weekends, where the retail establishments that would be permitted under this change designation are not known for being suitable for the residential area that we have. So thank you again for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioners, any additional questions? Commissioner Johnson.
I have a question for the developer, I guess. If it were to be rezoned, and you mentioned it being a walking neighborhood, is there intention to install sidewalks in that area? Okay, on that corner. Got it.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, we will close this petition. It will come back to us in roughly 2 weeks on the 2nd of July. That being said, we will close Plan and Zone public hearing and move on to our regular meeting agenda. Roll call, please.
Connell.
Present.
Hepner.
Still here.
Ingram.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Kelling. Lammers.
Present.
Manus and Metter excused. Quinn.
Here.
Reinhartz.
Here.
Tallman here. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. Report of City Council activity.
I think the only thing I would note is there was an error in the publication of the public hearing for the Rockingham Road rezoning effort, an error not made by the city. So the official public hearing for that at the Committee of the Whole will actually be on the second reading, which will be held at 5:30 on July 3rd.
Thank you, Matt. Secretary's report.
Second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, seeing none. It will stay as written. Zoning activity, Commissioner Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two cases this evening. First one is case number REZ 18-06, request of Tim Schaefer of Schaefer Automotive Services, LLC, doing business as Dale's Service Center for a rezoning on 4,380 square feet of property known as 1909 North Zenith Avenue, located north of West Locust Street and east of North Zenith Avenue. The rezoning is from R3 moderate density dwelling district to C2 general commercial district to provide parking for the associated business Dale Service. Staff recommends the Plan and Zoning Commission accept the findings and forward case number REZ 18-06 to the City Council for approval, subject to the following one condition, and I so move.
Case number REZ 18-06 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Wayne?
Wayne Willie, CPED. I'm actually going to kind of discuss both of them because they're somewhat taken in tandem.
That's fine.
However, you obviously do need to vote separately on them.
Correct.
Property basically is 1909 and 1909 North Zenith Avenue and 3816 West Locust Street that are the subject of the two cases. Both the properties are zoned R3 moderate density dwelling district, and the land use is residential general. The property itself, the property for the business itself was zoned, I think it was 2015, it's in your packet, to the commercial designation. This would be the sketch concept for the development, and that's why they're somewhat taken in tandem, though they can stand alone separately. So, business is located here, 3830 West Locust Street. 1909, located just to the north. Developer is looking at expanding the business just a little bit to create more of a flow through to the business, whereas currently they have to come into the property, back out of the property, causing some traffic concerns and visibility problems. There's also dropping off of vehicles by tow trucks that cause traffic problems as well. This would allow for a vehicle to pull in, drop off, and back, would again have to back out onto, I'm talking about a tow vehicle in this case, back out onto North Zenith and then pull out again. But that would be somewhat more limited than what they're doing now. Generalized traffic that would be utilizing the business, be able to pull in, park. They'd be able to then, when the vehicle gets worked on, pull in and then pull out. So there'd be that continual flow would be rather than backing type movements. The 3816 property, being the larger of the two in the case, would allow for a tow vehicle to pull in, drop a vehicle off, be pushed into or driven into one of the spaces. There'd be adequate room then for that tow vehicle to do the 3-point turn or 5-point turn and be able to pull straight back out on the Locust Street rather than backing into traffic. These are some pictures of the existing properties. 3816 here. This is 1909, both Google and Bing photos of the property. This was actually Google map picture of North Zenith. There was some mention at the public hearing regarding the blocking of traffic and the amount of traffic and parking that there is on North Zenith Avenue. Obviously, this is just a one-time shot, but we have two different photos, both from Bing Maps and Google Maps, showing parking along there. I think I've referenced in your packet that if a parking issue continues, there is an alternative for some of the residents that live along the street to potentially get resident-only parking, which would limit the parking in front of their residence. The findings for 1909, the request does mitigate congestion in the local streets. It may not end it, but it does mitigate it. The request also mitigates the business impact on the surrounding area by getting some of that traffic off the street by reducing congestion. And it allows for the small business to grow and remain. So basically our recommendation is that a 6-foot solid fence be constructed along the north property line. In the front yard of that area would be reduced down to 4 feet, but the majority of it would be the 6 foot to protect property to the north there. Also have the information regarding 3816. If you want to read that into the record first, that would be probably what you need to do.
Yeah, I would say we'll vote on, Commissioner Lammers.
Could you tell me what the flow will be between the two properties, since there's something in between? The larger property where they can pull in and drop cars, does the business then go retrieve them from that lot, come out on Locust and back in off of Zenith again then?
If the two properties were to be rezoned, that's how they would have to function at this point in time. At the public hearing, the petitioner did indicate that he has attempted to pick up the property in the middle and had no success doing that.
Okay.
I mean, that would be the ideal, obviously.
Right, but in dealing with what is current, we need to look at that. So you don't have issues of the increased flow of going, I mean, does it defeat the purpose of the safety of going out onto Locust Street?
Well, considering traffic would then be able to pull directly out onto Locust and then into the business, that would reduce the type of congestion that exists now, where you have people pulling into the service center and also then now having to back out onto Locust in a very limited space.
Okay, thank you.
If I remember correctly, at the neighborhood meeting or at the site, the petitioner, the owner, the business owner, had expressed an interest to build an addition onto the back of the building with a service door to allow him to bring off of Zenith, he could bring his vehicles into the building out of the 1909 lot, and that the 3816, it indicated to me that that would be for employee vehicles and finished vehicles that could be driven and not towed. Would the petitioner like to comment on that? Please step forward. I'm just trying to get some clarity to Commissioner Lammer's question.
Sure. Yep. I'm
Tim Schaefer. Can I use that? The best case scenario would be that we can access through the back of the building, come out kind of a flow this way. And your question was vehicles that were maybe finished. Generally, what we do anyway is bring vehicles to the front of the building for the customer to leave. Most generally, we make it so they're not backing out of the property. They're pulling forward out onto Locust just for safety. And we would still continue to do that as needed. The biggest thing that would be better is the Zenith Street right here where we park our cars. Right now we come out to Locust Street, take a left, and then left back into the shop because our doors are on this side. Ideally, we would avoid Locust altogether and be able to drive straight in. If, for instance, we did have a tow, the tow truck most generally would come from Locust Street. They could actually tow in and go straight through the building and drop a vehicle and drive out this way. The other thing that will be beneficial is when we have a parts delivery, we have multiple deliveries a day, I don't know, dozens, tires, parts, whatever. It would be ideal for, instead of vehicles pulling up in front, congesting the Locust Street entrance, drivers could then pull around to the back of the building and we can take delivery of parts and supplies and whatever in the back of the building. If that makes sense. Does that help?
So what's 3816 going to be used for?
3816 is additional parking. Right now we have cars parked on Locust Street. Additional parking, most likely finished vehicles, most likely employee vehicles. If there's an overflow or there's not enough room, we have plenty of more spots here. Right now, most of the time we have somewhere between 15 to 20 vehicles in our possession, and I'm hoping that this will resolve all the parking that we have on Locust Street.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion for REZ 18-06? We did. We've got
Yeah, we're
just for that individual.
Yep, yeah, we haven't
Okay,
done the next
just
one.
want to make sure.
Just do a roll call now on that.
All right, roll call, please.
Connell.
Yes.
Hepner.
Yes.
Lammers.
Yes.
Quinn.
Yes.
Reinhardt.
Yes.
Tallman, yes. Then the last case is REZ 18-07, request of Tim Schaefer of Schaefer Automotive Service LLC, doing business as Dale Service Center for rezoning on 6,000 square feet of property known as 3816 West Locust, located north of West Locust Street and east of North Zenith Avenue. The rezoning is from R3 Moderate Density Dwelling District to C2 General Commercial District to provide parking for the associated business Dale Service. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the findings in forward case number REZ 18-07 to the City Council for approval, subject to the following one condition, and I so move.
Second.
Case number REZ 18-07 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Wayne, do you have any additional comments?
This would be, again, the findings, and then also that a 6-foot solid fence be constructed along the north and east property lines of the property.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Hepner.
Yes.
Lammers.
Yes.
Quinn.
Yes.
Reinhardt.
Yes.
Tallman, yes. And Connell.
Yes.
That motion carries, and that concludes the report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. Commissioner Connell, subdivision activity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 cases tonight. The first one is case number F18-05, request of Seng Meadows LLC for a final plat of Seng Meadows, first edition on 14.5 acres MOL, located west of Northwest Boulevard and north of West 46th Street, containing 40 single-family lots. The preliminary plot was approved in April. The area is zoned R3 moderate density dwelling district. Staff recommends the Plan and Zone Commission accept the findings in forward case number F18-05 to the City Council for approval, subject to the 8 listed conditions, and I so move.
Case number F18-05 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Wayne?
This is the location, basically Northwest Boulevard and Marquette Street, north of 46th Street. Zoned R3 residential and residential general for the land use. This is the plat. This is the portion of the property that was part of the preliminary plat, taking this entire area. This is the portion for the final plat. These are the 8 conditions. Basically, we're looking at limiting access, no access on the Northwest Boulevard, basically the internal streets. West 48th Street, we're requiring to end in some sort of a turnaround that's acceptable, be it a cul-de-sac or a hammerhead. Right now, it just kind of dead ends and into a detention basin. Then lots abutting those detention basins need to be elevated enough so that if the basin gets over top, they're not going to fail or not going to be flooded. That's about it.
Thank you, Wayne. Any questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Lammers.
Yes.
Quinn.
Yes.
Reinhardt. Yes.
Tallman, yes. Connell.
Yes.
Hebner.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, my second case tonight is F 18-06 of Bush Construction for a final plat of Crow Valley Plaza 11th Edition on 8.13 acres MOL, being a replat of Lot 2 of Crow Valley Plaza 10th Edition, located along the north side of East 56th Street and east of Utica Ridge Road, containing 2 lots. Staff recommends the Plan and Zone Commission accept the findings and forward case number F15-06 to the City Council for approval, subject to meeting Municipal Code Chapter 13.34 Stormwater Management. And I so move.
Second.
Case number F 18-06 been moved and seconded for discussion. Commissioner Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be abstaining from this case also.
Thank you. Scott?
Hello. This case, as you know, you just had a public hearing for it tonight, so you're kind of up to speed with some of the issues. The rezoning case will determine what uses are going to be allowed there. The plat will go forward regardless whether it's CO uses or it's something a little bit higher than that. The only concerns staff had was that there's some small details that are being worked out with stormwater management, and that's why there's a condition there. So before it's signed, we just wanted to make sure that those conditions were satisfactory to Public Works.
Scott, if I remember correctly, at the neighborhood meeting, somebody asked the question if the rezoning didn't go through, would this go away? And I think somebody said yes. Is that?
That's up to the petitioner. It can certainly go forward.
I think Tom was saying that he would take this back and not.
Yeah, if Matt has information out to guard, he could speak to that.
I don't specifically, but as some plats that go through the P&Z and are even approved by council ultimately never get recorded. That being said, either in a C2 or CO zoning classification, the lots that are the 2 lots being proposed meet the minimum standards. Therefore, there's not strong reason for the commission to recommend denial of the plat. If you're comfortable moving forward with, as Scott mentioned, the stormwater issues that quite typically getting those resolved don't always coincide with a plat approval, particularly at the P&Z level.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Lammers.
I'm just a little confused. If this was the last public hearing we just heard, and the concern was, I thought from the city that the question was, is it an effective transition zoning change? Am I missing something here?
Well, this is a plat. We're not getting into the zoning issues at this point in time.
Okay.
We're just, the issue before is, does the plat meet the conditions of the staff, or of the required ordinance for the city? So they can rezone CO property to, instead of having to be 3 lots, they can replat it. I'm sorry, I said rezone. I meant replat it. They can replat it to 1 lot, regardless of what the property is zoned.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yep.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Quinn abstained. Reinhardt.
Yes.
Tallman, yes. Connell?
Yes.
Hepner?
Yes.
Lammers?
Yes.
Motion carries.
My last case tonight, Mr. Chair, is request of Richard Pierce for a two-lot final plat on 9.64 acres MOL located north of Telegraph Road and east of Vermont Avenue, 405 North Vermont Avenue. The proposed addition replats one lot into two lots. The property is currently zoned A1 Agricultural District. Staff recommends the Plan and Zone Commission accept the findings and forward case number F18-07 to the City Council for approval, and I so move.
Second.
Case number F18-07 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Wayne?
Some of you may remember this plat or area from last year when the petitioner was actually doing 3 lots. For whatever reason, he is now just doing 2 lots. The rationale is still there. Basically, they want to downsize, move into the smaller lot that's being created. It is agriculturally zoned. If they do that, they will need to rezone the area for their new residents. It is residential general according to the comp plan. This would be the plat. Their current residence is located approximately here. Their new residence would be at this location. They're not looking forward to doing that until they actually begin building, or moving out until they actually begin building, and that would entail a sale of the previous property. But again, for them to build here, they would need to rezone the property. They don't foresee that happening in the near-term future.
Thank you.
We're looking at basically 3 conditions.
Thank you, Wayne. Any questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Reinertz?
Yes.
Tallman, yes. Connell?
Yes.
Hepner?
Yes.
Lammers?
Yes.
Quinn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Connell. Seeing we have no future business, I have a piece of business. Wayne, could you step back up here, please? I don't know if everybody's aware that tonight is Wayne's final official meeting, which he seems pretty darn happy about.
Tonight.
Correct. That's why we had such a long meeting tonight. I do have in my hand a proclamation from the City of Davenport, and on behalf of the city and the Plan and Zone Commission, I would like to read it. Whereas Wayne Willie, in completing a 38-year career of faithful service to the City of Davenport, and whereas Wayne has worked extensively with the City Plan and Zone Commission during his employment, and whereas Wayne has consistently provided high-quality reports, presentations, and recommendations to the Commission during his tenure, whereas Wayne has presented such information with the highest standard of fairness, thoroughness, and expertise, whereas Wayne's loyal presence and assistance at Commission meetings will be missed, but he will always be remembered with fondness and respect. Now I, Robert Ingram, on behalf of the entire Davenport City Plan and Zone Commission, express gratitude to Wayne Willie for his service, friendship, and extend the best wishes to him, his wife, Lee, in his retirement. Signed this day, 19th day of June, 2018. Wayne, it's been a heck of a career. I've enjoyed working with you since the day I came on board. You will be thoroughly missed by myself, and I'm sure the commission, staff. I look forward to seeing you at your retirement party, and I hope we cross paths in the future.
We probably will.
I hope so.
I may be back at the podium. Who knows?
Well, as a guest, I would like to present this to you. We have a couple photo opportunities here.
Simple there, Matt. Wayne, thanks for everything.
Wayne, you're going to miss me asking you these questions.
All that being said, I think that concludes. I see nobody in the audience that would probably want to speak, or that wasn't, I'm sorry, that was not an option. Thanks for your thoughts, O'Brien. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
All in favor, signify by aye. Opposed? We are officially adjourned. Please drive home. Yeah, I want to say retired. Please drive home safely. Wayne, it's been a pleasure.